Welcome to PTI, sir. Sir, I will start off by asking you, you've been the former HRD minister. Now there is this whole issue, UGC issue, where they came out with equity regulations to combat caste-based discrimination on campuses. There were protests, then the Supreme Court intervened, then it was stayed. So how do you look at this whole issue?
No, Supreme Court, the matter is pending in Supreme Court. So I think it is inappropriate for me to render any opinion on it, except that on a larger perspective, in this country we have to take every section of society with us, right, together. Because India will become a great nation, and we talk about Viksit Bharat, only when all sections of society are taken care of, right? And from the policy standpoint, from the implementation standpoint. So any attempt to create divisions within society ultimately is harmful to the future of the nation. And that's nothing to do with the UGC regulations. It's a general perception that must be taken into account, because we are all citizens of India first. Then we belong to a community, then we belong to a caste, then we belong to a region, then we have a certain language, right? This is such a diverse country that diversity should be taken to be an advantage, because that allows for consideration of the concerns of every section of society. So if you start creating problems within society, the future of India will be at stake.
So you think that the government could have handled it better, probably consulted stakeholders before coming out with the regulations? Could it have been handled better?
I don't know, better or worse, I have no idea. But the normal, since 2014 when they came to power, they have never shared their views with anybody. So their consistency of their not consulting anybody is reflected in every decision they take.
So you were part of the UPA government, which came out with a number of people-centric laws. One of them was the RTI, of course. Now, the economic survey has called for re-examining the RTI. How do you look at this?
Well, I don't know to what extent it seeks to re-examine the RTI, because there are already exceptions in the RTI itself, that information that relates to the security of the state, information that relates to certain financial matters, will not be revealed. Now, I don't know, unless I know to what extent they want to not allow right to information, which I think is a basic democratic right. I mean, I like to be informed as what the government is doing. And government, in any case, doesn't give us the right data. And if you in fact debar people from the right to information, it'll do great damage to our society.
Sir, what are your expectations from the upcoming budget? Now, the opposition has already raised the issue of inequality, welfare schemes like Manrega being dealt a blow. So what's your take on the budget? What are your expectations, and what are the corrective measures you would like to see?
Well, first of all, I think people should understand what a budget is. A budget is the allocation of resources based on the revenues that the government earned and the monies that the government has for certain programs, which normally should target the most underprivileged section of society, right? I mean, it's a utilitarian concept. Yes, you must give pleasure and you must reduce pain. That's true of every human activity, right? So through budget, you must increase the pleasure of people. That is the way they live, the facilities they get increases their pleasure, right? Therefore, the supplies to people should be at a fair price, right? And reduce pain. In other words, if people are poor, then you must uplift them. If people are being discriminated, then you must make sure. If certain states are getting less money, you must make sure that they get more money. That's what the budget is all about, right? Now, the problem with the Indian budget is that they don't have enough resources. And the reason why they don't have enough resources is that in the last 11 years, they have done nothing, and I say nothing, to create surpluses. through which they can actually meet the programs that they have launched and increase the pleasure of the ordinary man and reduce his pain. Okay, that's how I look at it. Now just look at certain fundamentals. When Modi ji took power, the rate of the rupee equivalent $1 was 63. What is it today? 92. Right? Now, what does that mean? That means everything that's imported into India costs more. Right? Now, what is imported into India? Let's find that out. 84% of our oil, crude oil, is imported. Right? Now, that means the price of that import has increased in terms of the loss of the currency from 63 to 92. That is several percentages. It will cost us more. What else do we import? We import manufactured goods, right? Big machines we import. They'll cost more. What else do we import? Every medical equipment that is manufactured, right, and which is needed is imported. Very few medical equipments are manufactured here. Then what else do we import? In the telecom sector, right? We import all the hardware. That's why companies are very happy coming to India, because they make a lot of money. So in agriculture, for example, fertilizer, we import fertilizers all the time. Electrical equipment, we import electrical equipment. Now we import for making medicines, we import basic ingredients. That will cost more. So whatever we are importing, because we are not an export-oriented economy, right? Since we are not an export-oriented economy, we're an import-dependent economy, the result is that everything costs more. Now, who pays for it? You and I, right? And who is taxed? The rich. And very few people actually pay taxes. Who suffers? The poor, because the poor people need jobs. If there's not enough money in the market, they won't get good jobs. But they have to work because they're 18 years of age, and they'll do any kind of work that they get just to make ends meet, right? And if you have a scooter in your house and the petrol costs more, it will increase your expenditure. In the meantime, your school fees you have to pay. How do you pay those fees? So basically, and it's an accepted fact, and this is now known, that all these, the Food Security Act allows us to give food grains to the poorest of the poor, which means they don't have enough to eat. So you recognize the fact that the poor are really poor. You don't have surpluses to be able to reduce their pain, but you increase the pleasure of the richest people in this country. How do you increase the pleasures? Because they can buy a Lamborghini now, because the tariff will be very low, the duty will be very low, they will buy these great imported cars. And if prices increase, it doesn't matter to them. The rich can always manage their affairs. So they increase the pleasure of the riches, of the rich people. They don't reduce the pain of people. And this budget really hopefully will reflect that, but I doubt it, because if it hasn't reflected in the last, 11 years, or rather, 11 years, I don't think it's going to reflect, that concept which is necessary to make people happy with the policies of the government.
So the economic survey also said so, and the government has repeatedly made the argument that India is one of the fastest growing economies, while the opposition has pointed out about inequality and other issues. So how do you respond to the government's argument that it's the fastest growing economy?
India is the fastest growing economy. There is no doubt about it. But what does that mean? People really don't know what it means to be a fastest growing economy. For example, I'll give you a small example. If I am earning 1,000 rupees yesterday, right? And I earn 2,000 today, my earning has increased by 100% almost, right? Now the fact is that if you have a low base in the economy, right, and suddenly in 1 year you increase that, it will show that you're growing fast. But what is the real test of an economy? which is growing fast and which is reducing the pain of people. The real test is per capita income. Even that's not an absolute test, but it's an approximate test. Per capita income means how much a person earns as compared to other economies. So our per capita income is $2,800 a year. Less than Brazil, less than South Africa, less than China, right? All the emerging economies, the per capita income is more. In fact, I'm not too sure about this, but even some of the neighboring states, their per capita income is higher than ours, right? Which means that the money that an individual gets in his pocket, on an average, that also is not real, on an average is less than the money that is provided to individuals in other parts of the world, right? Which means that even if you may be the fastest growing economy, right, it doesn't solve the problems of people, because people need money in their pockets. And if the inputs in living life are getting expenses daily, for example, your medical care is getting expensive, your education is getting expensive, you have to buy consumer goods, they are getting expensive, and for an agriculturalist, the fertilizers are getting expensive, right? Therefore, what it means is that the poor don't have the capacity to meet their daily needs, right? And that's a very, very serious situation. So the economic survey doesn't even talk about that. It doesn't talk about per capita income. But even per capita income, as I said, is not a clear indication of what the real strength of the economy or the weakness of the economy is. The real weakness of the economy in India is that almost 80% of the people live in less than 5,000 to 10,000 rupees a month. Right? Can we be happy with that? Can the economic survey say that India is the fastest growing economy with 80% of our people earn less than 10,000 rupees a month? I think it's a shame. And what has Modi ji done about it? Nothing. Remember when Modi ji came to power, what did he say about the rupee? कि गिरावट हो रही है, रुपये की गिरावट हो रही है, बाकी देशों में क्यों नहीं रुपया, क्यों नहीं उनकी करेंसी गिर रही, हमारी क्यों गिर रही है? तो आज मोदी जी मौन क्यों है? Why is he quiet? He was the one who was attacking the rupee, the strength of the rupee at that point in time. I think it was about 58 at that point in time. Before he came to power, it became 63, right? And he used to give lectures after lectures to the people of India, right? And now suddenly, when the rupee is 92, he's quiet, and rightly so, because he knows that that was a political game. Now people say, no, if the rupee is weak, it's good for us. Why is it good for us? Because our exports will be cheaper, we'll be more competitive in the market outside of this country, right? And that's good. But the question is, we are not an export-oriented economy. So that's not going to help. And secondly, with tariffs at 50% imposed by the US and other countries, the problem is that we are not even competitive in that market. And that's why it became absolutely necessary, unavoidable, to have a deal with other countries, right? And that's why a free trade agreement with the European Union.
So that brings me to my next question. How do you look at this FTA with the EU, especially in light of our relations with the US and that deal not being concluded till now, and the tariffs imposed by the US? So how do you look at this whole issue?
I think, first of all, this deal is going to come into force in the beginning of next year, right? As I understand it, right? Now, there's a problem there. And I hope we do have a free trade agreement with the US before that, and I hope President Trump reduces tariffs, to some extent, to a large extent, because the imposition of tariffs on India is much more than any other country in the world, right? That's clear. And this is despite the great friendship between our Prime Minister and Donald Trump, because the kind of bonhomie and the affection that they had with each other somehow doesn't portray itself in the policies of Donald Trump. So anyway, that's another subject altogether. Now, take for example our exports. Now we have to diversify our exports because the most major trading partner is the United States of America. So we're not competitive there. So we have to diversify our exports. And European Union has a lot of millions of people, and so we have a market there that we can exploit. The problem is the following, and the problem is quality. For example, I give you an example. I am making jackets, right? Certain kinds of jackets, whether it's leather or in textile, or certain kinds of clothes, and exporting them to the United States. Okay? I have a market there, I have a buyer there. And I've been selling products to him for years. Okay? Now I have to find a buyer in the European Union. Now the buyer may not like the style of the product that I used to export, whether it's in the form of a jacket in textiles, right, or clothes, or a jacket in leather, right? So he will say, I want this kind. Now, the manufacturer has already made capital investment, right, in a machinery which will manufacture that kind of product which I exported to the United States. Now I'll have to make capital investments in that machinery. So I'll have to borrow money from the bank, so my cost will go up. I won't be able to sell at the same price, and there'll be quality controls. And then I'd have lost the market in the United States. Right? So it's a different market. I just gave you one small example. This will apply everywhere. It's a different market. I don't have the buyers yet. I have to clear quality control. There are other non-tariff issues which are involved. So it's not an easy business. Suddenly to change the avenues of trade is not per se beneficial. So it's a mother, they say it's a mother of all deeds, right? And, I hope, because many of the things Modi ji has said have just turned out to be damp squibs. I hope this one doesn't turn out to be that.
So moving on, I would like to ask you about Justice Verma's matter. Now the government has said that it is awaiting its probe report. Do you expect that to be tabled this session? And also about Justice
Look,
Shekhar Yadav.
I have been a lawyer for Justice Verma, and it's not right for me to make any comments. I have moved an impeachment against Justice Yadav.
Yes.
And I am aware of the fact, and even then I was aware of it, and I said so in public, that this won't be taken up. And Thankar Saab never took it up. I knew that would happen. Some technical issues because they wanted the judge to retire. He's going to retire this year, and that motion would lead us nowhere. This is the state of our country and the state of our institutions.
Sir, I would like to ask you about the President's address to the joint sitting of both the houses. Now, the President gave a call of lawmakers voicing their opinions on national issues. They should come together, she said. She said that there should be unity on national issues and issues of that are crucial to the country.
Yes, yes.
So, and the rest of the address, what's your opinion?
The most crucial of this issue in this country is communal harmony. I hope that the Prime Minister comes forward and ensures that there is communal harmony in this country. Right? Another important issue is how to make our country economically strong. Now, if you don't listen to other people, right, you cannot become. If you don't accept the views of others, you can't become economically strong. Another important issue is our defense. Right? There also you have to take the opposition into confidence. And the President is absolutely right. We must come together, to be together, to march along together. But this government has never allowed us to do that.
Thank you very much, sir. सर बजट प्रेजेंट होने वाला है. कई सारे मुद्दे हैं जो अपोजिशन ने पहले भी उठाए हैं, जैसे कि इनइक्वालिटी का मुद्दा है और मनरेगा रिपील का मुद्दा है, जो कि इकोनॉमी को नेगेटिवली इम्पैक्ट कर रहे हैं. अपोजिशन ने कहा है. क्या ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो आप एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं इस बजट से, और क्या ऐसे कदम हैं जो आप चाहेंगे गवर्नमेंट उठाए कि आर्थिक सिचुएशन में भारत से बचाव?
देखिए जो हमारे जो इकोनॉमिस्ट्स हैं वो हमेशा कहते हैं कि हमारे जो इकोनॉमी के जो फंडामेंटल्स हैं, खास मूल्य हैं, वो बड़े स्ट्रांग हैं, ठीक है ना, मजबूत हैं। बजट कैसा भी हो, वो जब तक वो उस मजबूती को रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं करेगा तब तक लोगों में जिंदगी में खुशहाली नहीं आएगी। हमारी देश की आर्थिक स्थिति क्या है, इसमें दो बातें मैं आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूं। जिस तरह से रुपये की गिरावट आ रही है, उसी तरह से राजनीति में गिरावट आ चुकी है, उसी तेजी से आ चुकी है। और इस गिरावट की वजह से इतने मतभेद पैदा हो गए हैं कि एक एकजुट पॉलिसी जो देश के फ्यूचर में आम जनता की जिंदगी में खुशहाली आए, वो तो हमें दिखता नहीं है। फंडामेंटल्स तो हमारे देश के आपके सामने है। वो क्या है फंडामेंटल? कि जो हम एक ऐसी इकोनॉमी है कि हम हर चीज इंपोर्ट करते हैं, आयात करते हैं, हर चीज जो खास हमें जरूरतमंद जो चीजें हैं, जैसे हम पेट्रोल का, क्रूड ऑयल का आयात करते हैं, और 84% जो आयात है हमारा क्रूड ऑयल का है, वह डॉलर में पैसे देने पड़ते हैं। फर्टिलाइजर है जो किसान को चाहिए, यूरिया चाहिए, उसकी आयात होती है, वो भी डॉलर में देना पड़ता है, ठीक है। अगर रुपये का दाम जब मोदी जी सत्ता में आए थे 63 रुपए था और आज वो 92 रुपए हो गया है, तो निश्चित रूप से जो हम खरीद सकते थे उस समय फर्टिलाइजर या क्रूड ऑयल, आज खरीदेंगे तो कहीं से ज्यादा महंगा होगा और हमें डॉलर में देना पड़ेगा, ठीक है। जो हमारी अस्पतालों में जो बड़ी बड़ी मशीनें आती हैं, उनकी आयात होती है, वो भी ज्यादा पैसे हमें देने पड़ते हैं। देश देगा ना, डॉलर जो हमारे रिजर्व्स हैं उन्हीं से खर्चा होगा या अर्निंग से खर्चा होगा। हमारी अर्निंग्स कैसे होती हैं? जो हम एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं, एक तो ये अर्निंग होती है। दूसरा, जो बाहर से हमारे हिंदुस्तानी लोग हैं, खासतौर में यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में और जो अरब कंट्रीज में रह रहे हैं, वो रिमिटेंसेस करते हैं, पैसा घर भेजते हैं, ठीक है ना। तो वो भी अर्निंग्स होती है हमारी। फिर इंटरेस्ट की अर्निंग्स होती है, ये सब अर्निंग होती है ना, ठीक है। और साथ साथ में एफडीआई आती है। लेकिन आज की स्थिति ये है कि हमारी जो भी हम एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, जो भी हम निर्यात कर रहे हैं, जो भी हम रिमिटेंसेस आ रही हैं, वो कमती पड़ रही है। मतलब कि हमारे बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट्स में हमारे पास इतना पैसा नहीं आ रहा कि हमारा अपना खर्चा हम कर सके। ये स्थिति है देश की, ठीक है। अच्छा, और उसमें यह है कि अगर हम बाहर से आईएमएफ से लोन लेते हैं और लिए हुए हैं जो लोन, वर्ल्ड बैंक से जो लोन लिए हुए हैं, वो कहते हैं कि जी ये लॉन्ग टर्म लोन है, इसमें हमें 20 साल 30 साल में देने पड़ेंगे और इंटरेस्ट रेट उसका जो होगा वो 1 या 2% होगा। वो तो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर आपका रुपया का दाम 63 से 92 हो जाए तो 1 से 2% नहीं, वो 7% हो जाएगा, क्योंकि रुपया तो दाम गिर गया, तो हमें पैसा तो और देना पड़ेगा ना, ठीक है। तो वहां हो रही है। और हमारी जो निर्यात की अर्निंग्स है वो बहुत कम है। और फिर 50% जो ट्रंप साहब ने इम्पोज किया है, जो मोदी जी के बहुत एक गहरे दोस्त थे, मतलब कि जो उनके प्रति जो क्या कहते हैं, अफेक्शन जिसको कहते हैं ना, प्रियता, वो थी ना, तो वो तो गायब हो गई। और ये स्थिति है कि 50% टैरिफ लग गया। तो जो निर्यात हमारी होती थी, अमेरिका हमारा सबसे बड़ा ट्रेडिंग पार्टनर है, सबसे ज्यादा हमारी जो ट्रेड है वो यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स से होती है, तो वो खत्म हो गया। हम कंपेटिटिव रहे ही नहीं, बाकी देश वहां अपनी मजबूती से निर्यात कर रहे हैं, तो वो खत्म हो गया। फिर मजबूरी थी हमारी कि यूरोपियन यूनियन से हम डील करें, उनकी भी मजबूरी थी, क्योंकि वो चाइना से डील नहीं लेना चाहते, तो इंडिया से लेना चाहते हैं। तो ये तो अच्छी बात हुई है, लेकिन इसका असर क्या होगा ये तो वक्त ही बताएगा ना, क्योंकि ये जो डील है, जो मदर ऑफ ऑल डील्स है, वो तो इफेक्टिव होगा अपना 2027 में। और उसके बाद हम लोगों को वहां जो हमारे निर्यात करते हैं, चाहे वो टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर हो, जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी हो, या वो लेदर गुड्स हो, या और ऐसी चीजें हो, तो निश्चित रूप से हमें बायर ढूंढने पड़ेंगे। और अगर कोई टेक्सटाइल का मैन्युफैक्चरर या लेदर गुड्स का मैन्युफैक्चरर अगर वो मशीनरी लगाता है निर्यात करने यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के लिए, तो यूरोपियन यूनियन का बायर कह सकता है कि साहब मुझे ऐसा कमरा नहीं चाहिए, मुझे तो दूसरी किस्म का चाहिए। उसके लिए उसको नई मशीनरी खरीदनी पड़ेगी, उसके लिए उसको पैसा चाहिए, फिर वो लोन लेगा तो उसका इंटरेस्ट देना पड़ेगा। इंटरेस्ट देगा तो निश्चित रूप से जो कॉस्ट है उसकी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की वो बढ़ जाएगी। वो कंपेटिटिव रहेगा या नहीं ये नहीं मैं कह सकता। और साथ साथ में क्वालिटी कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा, और उसके साथ उनके नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर भी बढ़े हैं। तो इसका नतीजा क्या होगा ये आज के दिन नहीं कह सकते, क्योंकि इस सरकार की ये आदत है, कोई भी कुछ करें तो खुद ही अपने पीठ थपथपाते हैं और वाह 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 करते हैं। इसीलिए उन्होंने मदर ऑफ ऑल डील्स कहा। ये अदरवाइज होगा या नहीं ये तो वक्त बताएगा। और हर चीज तो हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं। अब चीन से हम सब चीज तो इलेक्ट्रिकल इक्विपमेंट इंपोर्ट करते हैं, कई चीजें इंपोर्ट करते हैं, और हेल्थ सेक्टर में सब चीजें मशीनरी इंपोर्ट करते हैं, बड़ी बड़ी मशीनें। यहां बनता क्या है मुझे बताइए, ये बताइए मुझे यहां बनता क्या है? क्या ऐसी चीज बनती है? हवाई जहाज तो हम नहीं एक्सपोर्ट करते, बड़े बड़े हवाई जहाज भी हम लेते हैं ना, बाहर से लेते हैं ना, उसमें डॉलर पे, हर चीज तो हम डॉलर में देते हैं, और रुपया कोई खरीदने को तैयार नहीं। और पिछले साल 16% $5 बिलियन हिंदुस्तान ने FIIs ने हिंदुस्तान से निकाल लिए। क्यों निकाले? क्योंकि उनको मालूम नहीं कि इस देश की आर्थिक स्थिति कैसी है कि उनको फायदा होगा या नहीं। जब तक राजनीतिक स्थिरता नहीं आएगी, जब तक एक कम्युनल हेट्रेड खत्म नहीं होगा, जब तक हम इकट्ठा होकर आगे नहीं चलेंगे, जब तक हम प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया की बात नहीं सुनेंगे, जो ये नहीं सुनेंगे, तब तक हिंदुस्तान की आर्थिक स्थिति ऐसी ही रहेगी। क्योंकि जो पीड़ित लोग हैं उनको सबसे ज्यादा भुगतना पड़ता है। कोई स्कूटर चला रहा है, कोई थ्री व्हीलर चला रहा है, वो तो पेट्रोल खरीदेगा ही खरीदेगा ना, और अगर खरीदेगा तो उसको दाम ज्यादा देना पड़ेगा ना, तो उसको भाड़ा क्या मिलेगा? एज इट इज उसकी इनकम तो बड़ी कम होती है, उसकी जो कमाई होती है वो बड़ी कम होती है। जो हमारा किसान है, जो हमारे फर्टिलाइजर्स फैक्ट्रीज हैं, उनको भी भाड़ा ज्यादा देना पड़ेगा। तो जो आम खरीदने की चीजें हैं, देखिए मुझे याद है कि हम अपने घर में रहते थे महारानी बाग, तो साथ में एक दुकान होती थी, लोकल मार्केट सी होती थी, हम सब चीजें खरीदते थे। तो लोकल मार्केट खत्म हो गई। अब तो इधर बड़े बड़े जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं बाहर से जो आए हुए हैं, अमेजॉन हो, कोई और चीज हो, अब तो उनसे चीजें खरीदते हैं हम। तो फायदा तो उनको हो रहा है ना, नुकसान अपना, फायदा उनका। और जो अमीर लोग हैं वो मजे से ले रहे हैं, क्योंकि अगर महंगाई हो भी जाए तो उनको क्या फर्क पड़ता है? अगर महंगी चीजें हो भी जाए तो उनको क्या फर्क पड़ता है? और अगर मशीनरी चार्ज महंगी लाएंगे तो चार्ज तो हमसे करेंगे, हम ही से करेंगे ना, हम अपना टैक्स देंगे। और टैक्स देश में कितने लोग देते हैं? बहुत कम लोग। तो आम आदमी बेचारा क्या करेगा? तो इसीलिए तो आपको फूड सिक्योरिटी के अंतर्गत आपको कनक और सब चीज देनी पड़ती है, व्हीट और राइस देना पड़ता है, क्योंकि आपको मालूम है लोगों के पास साधन नहीं है। तो जिस कंट्री में पर कैपिटा इनकम ही $2,800 हो, बाकी देशों से, ब्राजील से, अपने चाइना से, साउथ अफ्रीका से भी कम हो, जो बात ये कभी मानते नहीं और कहते नहीं है, तो निश्चित रूप से उस देश में खुशहाली गरीबों को आ ही नहीं सकती। देखिए, बजट का मतलब ये है कि आम आदमी की जिंदगी में खुशहाली आए, और बजट का मतलब ये भी है कि उसकी पीड़ा कम हो। पिछले 11 सालों में इन्होंने आम आदमी की जिंदगी में खुशहाली लाई नहीं, और पीड़ा बढ़ती जा रही है। बजट का क्या होगा, उसका नतीजा क्या होगा, वो तो वक्त ही बताएगा।
सर, मेरा आखिरी सवाल आपसे ये है कि ये यूजीसी का मुद्दा जो है उस पर काफ़ी प्रोटेस्ट हुए, बाद में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इंटरवीन किया। क्या आपको लगता है कि गवर्नमेंट इसको बेहतर हैंडल कर सकती थी, या कोई स्टेक होल्डर से बात?
इसके बारे में मैं ज्यादा टिप्पणी नहीं करूंगा, क्योंकि मेरी तो एक सोच है। सोच के बारे में आपको बता सकता हूं कि जिस देश में राजनीति बंटवारे के आधार पे हो, वो देश कभी विकसित भारत बन ही नहीं सकता। जब तक हम ये मान के ना चले कि हर बंदा जो यहां रह रहा है, हर इंसान जो यहां रह रहा है, वो हिंदुस्तान का नागरिक है, उसका कोई भी धर्म हो, कोई भी कास्ट हो, किसी भी जगह वो रह रहा हो, हाँ, जब तक ये बात इस सरकार को समझ में नहीं आएगी, तब तक ना विदेशी लोगों को हमारे ऊपर कॉन्फिडेंस रहेगा, ना हिंदुस्तान की जनता में वो विश्वास रहेगा कि हम वाकई में विकसित भारत बन सकते हैं। ये तो चाहते हैं कि किसी तरीके से विकसित भारत तो ना हमने देखा, ना शायद जो बैठे हुए हैं वो देखेंगे। ये तो एक सपना है ना जो दिखाते हैं, जैसे उन्होंने कहा था कि कई सपने दिखा चुके हैं। तो इनका भारत जो है ना वो अधूरा भारत है, और हम चाहते हैं कि सबका भारत हो।
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thanks a lot.